As we start this section then on planning and agile planning in particular, it's important to first look at some of the big differences between an agile mindset, an agile approach to projects and the traditional approach. And one of the things really it comes down to is this idea of scope, and this idea that we're trying to fix our scope because that somehow is the right thing to do. So let's debate that a little bit in this video here. We know the iron triangle. This is where we fix time, we fix scope, and we fixed cost. And that in project management is almost sort of the golden place that we want to get to, where those are fixed and then we track our project all the way through and deliver exactly against that. We know, of course, that it doesn't always happen. With the agile triangle, what we're doing is we're moving away from scope and we're moving towards the idea of value. So what we want to focus on is we want to make sure that we deliver the value, but against some of the myths that are out there, we can and should fix time and we should fix costs to get that to happen. This is really well explained in this article. I'll ping it into the comments below by Martin. I'm not sure how to pronounce his surname, Pudifat, maybe. Anyway, so he talks about this, and let me show you how this develops. So we have, in a traditional way of looking at things, the iron triangle, we have features, we have time, cost, and of course he adds the concept of quality, which is extremely important. What tends to happen in a traditional project is that time, cost, and quality get eroded, and as we try and deliver the features that have been agreed at the beginning of the project. Well, what we do with the agile approach is we allow the features to be the flexible part, and we focus very much on delivering quality, on time and on budget, whilst delivering the outcome rather than focusing all the time on the features, and the reason for this is that things are changing all the time. If we look at this diagram here, let's say that this is the original scope that was written into the contract, that was written into the agreement, and we have our starting point and we're trying to move towards that. Now, as soon as we start moving towards that goal with that particular scope, what happens is things start to change, and very quickly we realize there's a space in which the user is not going to be happy, and interestingly that original scope often sits within that unhappy user space. There's an area where the user can live with whatever it is that we're delivering, and quite often what the user actually wants and where they'll be actually delighted is actually separate from where we originally started. Now, a traditional project, obviously there's no way to go because we must deliver what was signed into the contract. If we have an agile contract, however, and we know that we can move towards this new place together, the development team and the stakeholders and the users, we then start to do our sprinting. Sprint 1, we will start to deliver and find that we may be going off track. It's normal for that to happen. We can pull that back quite easily, but what we suddenly find is that now the goal posts are shifting, and so we don't want to carry on along that green line. We actually want to start moving towards this new place, and this happens because we're getting new information, we're getting more information, the user is getting wiser about what they want, maybe their priorities are shifting, and this is why we want to start moving fast as well with our projects, because we want to get to that point where the user has whatever it is they want. And this really explains the difference between agile and plan-driven methods. So if we look at value and we look at time, typically a plan-driven approach, we look something like this, which is why there are always surprises at the end, because there is no value delivered until the very end of the project, when everything is delivered in a big bang. Ta-da! We have that. With the agile approach, what we're trying to do is deliver as much of the value as early as possible, so that we actually should have delivered 80% of the value by the time we've delivered 20% of the features. So when we look at what it is that the customer wants, we focus on what they really, really need and what gives them most value, and we deliver that. What does that look like then if we're looking at a requirements list? So here is a typical scope or requirements list. and all the requirements are developed in great detail. And this comes back to our planning point that we have. Everything is done in great detail all the way through before this project is signed off, before we get started. And we build a project based on either one of complexity, ability of the people, maybe availability of whatever it is that we have, architecture, sometimes vanity of the stakeholders, or maybe something around security, which is okay. But what we do with an agile approach is we take that same list of requirements, but we only develop in detail those items which are near the top, which are the next things that are going to be worked on. So the things that the team is going to work on next. And we order this product backlog, this list, based on a combination of value, size, and risk. So depending on our risk appetite and so on, we focus everything on that. Now, we're able to therefore add things late in the day because that hasn't been worked on, that hasn't been developed in any detail. We haven't spent a lot of time developing the things that have gone on, that are happening later on in the project. We can reprioritize things, and an epic, by the way, is a group of features which sort of sit together well, or maybe deliver a particular set of functionality. But we can move an entire epic down to the bottom if we don't need to. We then, as those items get closer to the top, we start to refine them, and we're not afraid to delete things, to actually remove things from that product. If we've added something, then we want to remove something as well, because remember, time and cost are going to be fixed. And therefore it's the product backlog, it's the features, it's the requirements that are going to have to shift. Beautiful thing about delivering like this is that very often we can actually deliver early. We can actually finish a project early when we find that we've actually achieved enough value and we don't have to continue. And remember this picture, because in a later video we're going to be using this again. I'm going to show you the real life example of what we did on a particular project to get this. We actually, of the 9 epics that were there, we delivered the first 5, and that we didn't have to deliver the next 4.